Okay. All right. Welcome. Thank you for having me, taking some time out of your internship seminar class to do an e-portfolio review. So I requested access for all current interns a week and a half ago or so, and I believe now, if you go to cte.jhu.edu/login, and so if you can follow along in your PowerPoint, we're on the second slide. The website is there. This is the same, this is the old ELC. Maybe if you had classes last year, do you remember logging in to this for former classes, previous classes? So that should be the same login. I know that there's a new ELC that has been rolled out for the fall, but for the digital portfolios, we're using the ELC 1.0 for all the current interns. So go to this website, log in, and does this look familiar? So when you get to this screen, on the right-hand side, it'll say electronic portfolios, and if you click open, this is your sort of the main page. All right. So if you go on to the next slide, the first thing that I know some professors want you all to do is to upload a professional picture here, so that when you end up sharing your portfolio with prospective employers or turning it in at the end of your last semester, that's the picture that they'll be able to see. And so to do that, I want to show you how to do that first. So if you go to Tools and then Settings, there's an area that says Photo. And if you click Edit, you can browse for a photo somewhere on your desktop. Hit Open, and then Save, and then it'll show up there on your home page. All right, so it was Settings, Photo, Edit, and then Upload. So that's going to be a picture. Maybe if you have a headshot, or you can crop a photo that's yourself presented in a professional manner. And you can personalize the ELC in other ways by, and I'll show you later, when you create a presentation to share with folks, there's 3 different color schemes, and I'll show you where that is, but that's the personalizing portion. Okay, yeah?
If we already have a picture up on ELC, will it just kind of or do you have to
It's up
create
there.
it?
Does it
I
pull over?
had one and it was already up here and I
Oh,
had
So it's already up there.
Okay. Yeah, I guess the two communicate with each other, so the same picture you have for
Yeah, I did
ELC
upload this one. It's there.
will be pulled into your digital portfolio. All right, so step 1, before you do anything else, is you need to start depositing artifacts and past work samples into your file cabinet. So that's something that you can work on now, even before maybe the first section that you turn in, is to go back through your courses that you've taken in your counseling program of study. And you may have saved them on jump drives or on your hard drive somewhere. So you need to gather all of those and put it in your file cabinet. And so where you find that is if you go to Tools and File Cabinet, it's listed here, like all of the files that I want to have accessible to put on my digital portfolio. So one suggestion is you can start by adding a folder. So let's say you go back and, okay, I'm going to start with my Counseling Theories class. So name the folder Counseling Theories. Hit Add. And so if you go back there, there's my Counseling Theories folder. Open that up and we can start adding files. So click Add Files. Give it a name. So let's say you did a theories paper. And you browse your desktop and you look for that document. And then you hit Add. And there it is. The theories paper is now in there. So that's the first thing you want to do, is kind of get yourself organized, maybe by folders. And it actually goes along with, I think you have a second handout there, a rubric. So that's how your portfolio is going to be organized and then assessed, is how well you demonstrate your knowledge in those 8 K-Prep areas. So the first one is social and cultural diversity. So that's usually the most common sense class that ties into is your multicultural counseling class. So maybe you want to make a folder called multicultural counseling and start pulling your best work from that class and make a folder for it. And then go to the next section, it's human growth and development. So of course, you took a human growth and development class. So go back to those class assignments and pull those works in and try to represent as much as you can of the different elements. So it asks you about, so for example, social and cultural diversity. So demonstrates knowledge of multicultural and social justice theories and identity development. So as much as you can, you want to pull examples of your work that shows that you understand that. So any questions on adding files to your cabinet? First here and then here.
So we're adding more than one paper or article or sample in each course, not just one paper per course?
Yes. You want to pull as many artifacts that will represent your knowledge in that area.
Okay.
So you may need more than just one paper,
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think what you're showing, Ashley, is that you have an understanding of this core concept. And I don't think one paper, one of anything is going to show that. So you need multiple artifacts to show basically evidence that you've learned these topics. And that's what it is. So I would say probably 3 is probably a good number to start with, yeah.
So basically everything we're putting into this cabinet, we're putting into the portfolio? Are we just basically uploading it twice?
What you're doing, and if I can just interject, you're taking everything that you think is relevant and you're putting it in this filing cabinet to get organized.
Okay.
Then once you start to address each one of the standards, you pull out those things that are relevant and you apply them. But you can't just take something and upload it from your desktop or from a drive into a particular standard. You have to first move it to the file cabinet, then move it from the file cabinet into the standard. So it's a way to just get organized and get it all together. And if you do it, in a couple of steps, it'll make it a little easier. It'll show you what you're working with. And you'll see, hey, I don't really have anything for ethics. Why is that? Let me go back and look at the class that I took. Let me look and see what might be relevant. Or we could have a discussion. You could come into class and say, I don't have anything for ethics. And I could say, well, did you write an ethical dilemma paper? Did you, what I mean? We can talk about it. You can figure out where those pieces of evidence, those artifacts would be.
I'm just wondering if the material, the artifacts need to be graded artifacts, or can it just be, like, you need to actually see?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be the final, the graded one. I would say it would be the best draft that you have it, or...
Right, I would agree. You may not want to turn a paper in that says, an A on it, but it's got, it's marked up a little bit, you know what I mean? Go ahead and just take a copy of what you saved, what you printed out for your professor, submitted electronically, and put it on there. You want to put things that are going to represent you well, because you have potential employers that are going to look at this. And so it's just something, if you got feedback from a paper, and maybe it was an A paper, but there's a couple suggestions, you go fix those couple of errors, and so that it's good. If someone reads it and digs that deep into it, it's going to represent you well. But it doesn't have to have a grade on it or something like that.
What if you have like everything? Should you not put like everything you've done?
We'll go through it. We'll go through it. But what I would suggest is begin the process by loading everything into the file cabinet. Chunk it out, start, do the first standard or 2. Maybe you're, watching a game or watching whatever, and, relaxing, just start loading things in, see what it looks like. But you want to have somewhere around 3. If you have 4, great. But 2 is really a little bit weak, I think.
What's the max, do you think?
There really is no max. The max is going to be how much time you really want to put into it.
Yeah.
What you have to do is show show enough evidence that you understand this particular standard and what it means.
Could also be PowerPoints and stuff.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, it takes, you can upload all kinds of formats. You can even, upload files, and you can add links. So, if you're, and like, let's say, you want to refer in your artifact interpretation. Like, I wrote this paper in response to an article that I read or something on this website. You can add in a link. So if you want to save any particular links, you can save them here. Just give the link a name, like maybe the ASCA National Standards or something. And then, put www.schoolcounselor.org.
So this portfolio is not only for like internships, it's for also like potential employers.
Yeah, so there is a part at the end I'll show you. You can create multiple presentations. So one can include every single K-CREP area and your resume and your academic and professional growth. And that's the one that you're going to submit to Dr. DePaula. But if you are looking at an employer and they just want to see your resume and your bio, then you can just select those 2 items and not share all 8 K-CREP areas.
And send it to them.
Yeah, and it'll send them as a link. They can open it up and they'll just see your resume and bio. So you can customize, decide how much you want to share of your portfolio. Make one for class or make one for an employer.
Yeah, and I just want to add to this because it's important, and I did mention this last week, but you're doing this as a culminating project to show evidence of all the things that you've learned through all the K-CREP standards here in this program. But beyond that, it's simple enough to send it to prospective employers to let them see what it is that you've done, and it shows them, your resume and your personal statement, your educational philosophy, your interpretation of all the standards, what it means and how you've mastered them. And I've had students in the past, as recently as last semester, that have sent it and have gotten jobs very much related to, employers got excited about the person who's coming in to interview because they don't know much about you ahead of time. Maybe they've seen a resume. This gives them a whole lot more information.
Okay, so let's say you've got yourself organized, you put your files in the cabinet. Now you're getting ready, okay, in the 3rd week, Dr. DePaula wants you to do the interpretation and upload the artifacts for, what's the first one there? Social and cultural diversity. All right, so you go to Portfolio and wave over it. There's 2 that show up, K-CREP standards, and it'll list all 8. And then growth, there's 2 kinds of growth that you want to address too, academic and professional. So I'll show you what the social and cultural diversity looks like. So when you click on that, there is a, what do you call it, a general address of the K-CREP area that's already loaded in there for each person. And so here's where you write your interpretation of social and cultural diversity as it pertains to being a school counselor. So you write that there, and then you add different artifacts that you've saved in your file cabinet. So you add the artifact and you want to give an introduction to that artifact. So for example, if you've saved a PowerPoint that shows that you know about ethnic identity development. So what you want to do is, and I'll show you here. So for interpretation, you hit edit. And then I would recommend that you copy and paste this from a Word document so that, because I've had students just try to use this as a word processor, and they type in their interpretation here. But then let's say your internet connection gets, disconnected, then the work hasn't been saved. So, do it in a Word document, then copy and paste it into this box. So you type in your interpretation, and then you hit save. All right. And see, my text shows up here in the interpretation section. And then then you want to start adding your artifacts. So to add your artifact, you give it a title. So let's say ethnic identity presentation.
But it wouldn't at this point, would it already be saved?
Exactly, yep. So that's just going to give it, on your portfolio, it's going to show up as a hyperlink that'll say ethnic identity presentation. The person will click on it, and then that'll bring them to the file. So you can, in this section here, there's a text box, and that's going to be where you present your artifacts. So you want to tie in why you're deciding to share this ethnic identity presentation. So how does it represent your knowledge in these rubric areas? So, in the past we've had students write a couple of, like a paragraph or two for each, their interpretation, and then maybe a paragraph to introduce each artifact. So it's just kind of giving them a heads up on what you're sharing it and why. What you're sharing and why. How it links back to that standard.
So a paragraph or two for the interpretation, and then a paragraph for the rationale?
I would say so. There's no
Right.
limit. It's just, are you saying enough to represent yourself?
I think when you see some of the examples that we're going to show you, then it'll kind of make more sense. I wouldn't be tied up in how many paragraphs and all that for right now. I think most of my students, usually one paragraph does their interpretation, explains it well enough.
So you give your artifact a name, you introduce it, you hit save. On the next screen is where you can click this little icon, and that's your file cabinet. So you pick your, where is it? So let me just pick a PowerPoint there. And the next text box is just going to be anything else that you want to add below the file itself. Some people just simply said, presentation in my multicultural concept class. Spring 2011. Okay, and then you hit save. Alright, so you have your interpretation, and you have one artifact with your introduction, and then the file is attached to it. And so let me show you what that looks like when you come around time to create a presentation. So I'm going to skip down to the end of page 4. So I go to presentations, and I'm going to call this social cultural week 1. All right. This introduction here, this will display on the home page. So when the person clicks on your link, that's the message that they'll first see before they go in and look at the rest of your portfolio. So, hi, Dr. Paula. This is my first assignment. Okay? So you can close. Oh, that's a good thing. So you've named it. The shortcut's gonna, at the end of the URL, it'll give a little shortcut. So it'll say week 1. And then you want to select what part of your presentation is going to be in there. So for this one, I'm just going to click social cultural diversity. And I'll unclick the other ones. But you have to have at least one section that you're going to include in the portfolio. So then I'll hit save and close. Oh, contain numbers and letters. Okay, so the shortcut here, you can't have any spaces. So if I wanted to do a space between week and 1, I have to do a, what do you call this, an underscore. So save and close.
You can't use the underscore, I think it's what it's saying. I don't know, like, there.
Okay, third time's a charm, right? And you know, you can't go wrong. I mean, if you are working on this, just play around. I know you're all are web savvy, so just play around with it.
My younger days.
Okay, yes, all right. So you can see all the different presentations I've made in the past. But here's the newest one's going to show on the bottom. So if I click there, this is what it looks like. So my name, the picture, my message was, "Hi, Dr. Defoe." And when you click there, it'll just show the first, the one part of the portfolio I chose to show. So if you click here, the interpretation is there, the one artifact, and this is my introduction to that artifact, and when you click on it, it'll pull up the file, presentation that I gave in my multicultural counseling class. And then it allows you to open up that PowerPoint, and then they can view it.
Jen, will you take it back for a second?
Okay.
Just to where it shows the standard. Just because I know this is new for everyone, I know we're rolling kind of quick, but
So the standards.
so when you first go in, so like when I opened it up, or when they first opened it up, the standard is already going to be in there.
Oh, right. So let's go to
Yeah.
professional orientation.
So this will already be in there in your portfolio, okay?
Oh,
And
yeah, oh.
this paragraph will already be there. And the interpretation is, I mean, exactly what it says here. It's my interpretation of what professional ethics means to me. So you have to just take this and put it in your own words, through your understanding, okay? So this is what the standard is. This is your interpretation, how you put it in your own words, what it means to you, this particular standard, okay? And then the artifact down here, the artifacts that we use are how you show evidence that you've learned this standard, that you know what it means. So what things have you done to show that you understand, well, professional ethics, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but this is the standard, this is your interpretation of the standard and what it actually means to you, and this is the artifacts, the evidence that you've learned this information. Does that make sense?
That's great.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Yes.
Maybe I missed this, but so presentations,
Mhm.
that's strictly PowerPoint presentations that we have. So what's the difference between uploading artifacts in there
Mhm.
and then having to go through something completely separate and then finding the, do you know what I mean?
Okay, so the artifacts can be a plethora of file formats, a Word document, a PowerPoint. Now you just save it to your file cabinet.
Right.
The presentation is just a name for when you want to create a new link.
Presentation is what you're going to show, what you're going to present to someone else. So you're going to send a presentation to me. Does that make sense? That's what I'm going to see, right? But your artifacts could be anything. It could be PowerPoints, or it could be any kind of. It could be a picture that you've taken of a project that you did. It could be a short video clip of something that you did on site at your internship. It could be a lot of different formats. It could be a paper that you've written, obviously. But those are all just different types of artifacts or evidence to prove that you've learned this particular standard.
Hold on, evidence can be a picture as well?
Well, it depends on what it is, but yes.
Wow. Okay.
Maybe you've done a poster presentation or something like that for one of your classes, and you know what I mean, and you want to show a picture of that poster presentation, that trifold that you've done, or of a different project, or a lot of different things that you can do.
Right, yeah, something that you can't scan into a file, maybe you need to take a picture of it, right? Yeah.
I have the artifacts piece, I'm still a little confused about the presentation part. Here,
Presentation
just
part?
this tab.
Okay. So, yeah, so let's try that again. Let's make another one. So we go to presentation.
Let's start off with what is a presentation, Jen?
This is a presentation. It really is just a way to create a link to various pieces of your portfolio that you want to share.
So when we talk about
Does that make
presentation,
sense?
yes, when we talk about presentation, what we're talking about is, what is it that you wanna share with your audience? Presentation at the end of the semester is gonna be your entire portfolio with your resume and your picture and all 8 standards, interpretations, and artifacts. However, for right now, your presentation, if I say in 2 weeks, I wanna see the first standard, I think it was ethics, professional orientation and ethical practice. That's what I want to see, that you have at least, you have written interpretations, at least a paragraph, and then you have at least 3 pieces of evidence or 3 artifacts done, okay? So the presentation that you're going to send to me includes just ethical standards.
Yeah, yeah.
Does that make sense?
I think this might be a question for you, Dr. Paula. So we're submitting this at the end. What if there's a class we haven't taken that we can submit stuff for in artifacts and all, or like you're currently?
Well, to be in internship class, you should be in your last year pretty much. But if it's a one-on-one, I'm happy to work with you to make it happen. Is it a class that you're taking now?
It's like, it's just 3 classes. 2 I'm in now, and then 1 I haven't taken in the intercession, which I was told by, at the time who my advisor was, Dr. Holcomb McCoy, that as long as you're taking them concurrently, you're fine. So I didn't know this whole portfolio. I don't think she was.
Let me back up a step. This is an important piece of information. For those of you that are doing 600-hour internships now, this whole project is due at the end of this semester, and you can't graduate till it's done. For those of you that are doing 300 now and 300 in the spring, we're going to do pieces of it, but the entire thing is not actually due until May. Till May.
I was gonna ask
Till
you.
May. Sorry about that. I apologize.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah.
But we're still going to have some earlier deadlines on things,
Okay.
just to kind of work through the process. So if I say we're going to work with standard number 1, ethics professional orientation, and you haven't taken that, you're going to take that in the spring, then we're going to do a different one for you to get through. So don't worry,
Okay.
Yeah.
we'll be okay.
That's a good call. Yeah, that's very true. It's only due it's due at the end of your last semester of internship.
Okay.
All right. So
I was about to try and hurry up.
I know, I'm about to go, man.
yeah, and let's say you don't want to keep making 12 different presentations. You can make one that just says. So the one that I put here, maybe I'll make a new one. Maybe I'll make a presentation. So I'll hit add, and I'll do one for internship course and cumulative. All right, so you can create one, and then you can add parts of it later. So let's say right now I only have the first 2. Let's say I only have the first 2. Okay, so let's say I just have the first 2. I'm sharing just the first 2. I'm going to hit save. All right, so it's called internship course. So then I'm on my 3rd week, and now I have my human growth and development run ready to go. So I've added an interpretation, and I've added my artifact. See this button here? It says add to presentation. So if you just updated this part, and now you want to add it to an existing presentation, you hit that, and you select which presentation you've already created that you want to add it to. So I'm going to add it to that one. And so now, Dr. DePaula, if he still has that first link that you sent him, now he'll see not just the first and second week, but now he'll see the 3rd week that you added. So that works well too for like an employer. Maybe you sent them one that has your resume, but then you've updated your resume or something. Then you can, or different parts of your portfolio, you can update that and then send it to whichever one they have, rather than sending them a brand new link. So that's just a little tip. Yeah.
Okay, say, because I'm totally computer illiterate, but, this is like starting to give me anxiety, just thinking about
Okay,
this.
all right,
And I don't know
break
if
it
you're
down.
anxious about this type of stuff, I think just because it's new, I'm getting a little anxious. But, say like we have like all of the rationales and all of the interpretations like saved on a Word document.
Mhm.
We'll be able to like come and like get some help from you as opposed to like how to upload or like put it all together.
Well, we have
That's not,
a lot.
there is support that's
There's-
available, but Janet's not actually the one who does that. Would it be through Kristen Thompson or someone in her office maybe?
So you need a technical question answered?
So you have interpretation written, but you're not sure how to put it. And
Yeah,
it's not
because-
something, if it's something that maybe I can't help with or whatever.
Are you pretty familiar with this?
Somewhat, I'm not an expert, but I'm gonna help you.
It's just so different.
Can't you just copy and paste? Like,
Yeah, but, I mean, you've just been sitting here for 20 minutes, you clicked on like 20 different links.
And I'm confused as to how to upload the actual artifact, because when I click on, like social and cultural diversity, if I click on add,
Mhm.
it doesn't give me, I'm not, maybe it's,
So remember, there's 2 steps to add an artifact.
Okay.
First, you give it a name,
okay,
and then you give it an intro.
okay,
Then you hit save,
okay.
and then you select the file.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
All right then. All right. I'm
All
straight.
right. So there's 2 steps, and then you can save it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's Crystal? No, Ashley, right? So the more you get into it and just look at it, I promise you it will get easier. Like, and it's harder to just look at me doing it, and it's going to be a lot better when you actually go in. Yeah, it's hard to see there, but when you actually go in, log in, and play around with it, it'll make much more sense. And you don't have to write every single step down, because you'll see it in front of you, and it'll kind of guide you to the next window.
Do you have, Janet, a sample and exemplar that you can
Yeah.
show the class?
Yeah, okay, so, let me go back here. No, it's wrong. So, are you gonna have them request feedback or anything through the system, or you want them to send you links?
Usually I have my students send me links.
Okay, yeah. There is a way to request feedback, but I think the links are better because you see what is actually going to show up on the portfolio itself. All right, so here's some exemplars. Sample portfolio. Okay, so here's a student. You can see the welcome message, the personal statement. So this is kind of like when you do a personal statement to apply to the program. She's talking about the statement beliefs determine actions and how that plays into how she sees the role of a school counselor. If you click on the resume portion, this is the bio. So this is where you take more of a personal view of what maybe life events led you to choose this career, or you can talk about your background. So that's kind of the difference between the personal statement versus the bio. And on the end of the bio part is where you would upload your resume. So you can see she put 2 different resumes. One was like a 1 or 2 page resume, a professional resume, versus the CV can be longer, and that's more for academic sort of positions. All right. So if you
Everyone know
need-
what a CV is? Curriculum vitae.
So if you have presentations or publications, you would add that. So it's a little bit, it can be longer than a page or 2. And here's the portfolio part. So you can see the K-CARP standards. This is the canned response. And then when you click on it, her interpretation is here. So you can see she linked. So she refers to the Code of Ethics, and she actually linked the web page to it. So if you click there, it'll take you to the ASCA standards. So that's something cool that you can integrate into your interpretation.
Can we take a minute and just see what the standard is and read what the interpretation is? This is not, necessarily, you don't necessarily want to emulate this particular one, just show you one example of an interpretation, just so that you can think about this as you're kind of going through your own.
Yeah. Should we read it out loud? Okay. Do you want to? Yeah? We'll do real quick. So according to the ACA Code of Ethics and ASCA Ethical Standards for School Counselors, professional school counselors must abide by ethical and legal standards when serving stakeholders and use their understanding of ethical and legal standards in order to exhibit extensive knowledge, skills, and awareness of the profession. It is necessary to demonstrate our ability to provide consistently effective services to all stakeholders by developing and implementing appropriate counseling methods, practices, and strategies. These strategies must offer opportunities for collaboration and communication on all levels, systemic intervention. Goes on to this end. As professional school counselors, we are also professional leaders. It is our responsibility to provide services that will most optimally benefit the welfare of the clients within the counseling relationship. In a challenging time within the urban education system in the U.S., we must do our best to hold ourselves accountable by striving to provide equity, access, and social justice-focused practices. Ethical and legal standards shape the identity and legitimacy of the professional school counseling profession, as well as determine how we practice within our career. We must be capable of using appropriate consultation practices when faced with ethical dilemmas. In addition, we must continue with professional development in order to hone our knowledge, skills, and awareness of school counseling as a means of advocating for ourselves as professionals through membership in local, state, and national organizations. So I think, she really tried to address all the different elements of that standard. And that's why it's helpful to go back to the rubric and, try, even if you don't address it with a million artifacts, if you can address it in your interpretation and the introduction of your artifacts, that will demonstrate your knowledge very well.
I just want to know, is it necessary to cite on your portfolio or no?
I don't think so, because we're really not. Well, it's appropriate if you're going to make a reference. Yes, you need to cite it. But in your interpretation, I don't think that we're going that deep, if that makes sense. You're just showing your understanding of the interpretation. But again, if you're going to cite somebody, if you're going to share somebody else's work, then of course you need to cite it. But we're going to look at it on a weekly or every couple of weeks basis and answer those questions. But could you scroll down? Oh, there we are. To see what does she use as artifacts?
So, on this one, they did a PowerPoint presentation of the STEPS model. So I guess this is
For
a way
ethical
to,
standards.
a way to make ethical decisions.
Yep.
So, a substance abuse presentation using the STEPS model, and then an article critique on an article that pertained to ethical and legal consideration, with working with students who express self-interest. So takes a while. So in there, so she cited the article that she's reviewing up top, and then this was obviously a paper that she submitted during her ethics class or in one of her classes where they had an ethical assignment. So, so those were the two artifacts there.
Any questions about this? Does this make sense? A little more sense now you see an example? Okay.
Yeah. And I just want to show one more thing in the portfolio. So not only do you have the K-CREP areas, but if you scroll all the way down, we do get a lot of questions, what do I include in this growth part? And so, you know how there's a pre-filled in, paragraph about what this standard is? So for academic growth, it's going to say, we want to see your program of study, personal bibliography, so maybe books that you always refer to, that's part of your library, your professional library, any evaluations that you receive, maybe your transcripts.
So in addition to the portfolio, we're doing another section on academic growth and professional growth.
And then professional growth, you can include any professional activities that you're involved in, your philosophy on counseling. So,
It's not, this part is the easier part to do, to be honest with you. This is not a major piece to add to it. But we'll go through and look at some examples. It'll be fine.
What are the evaluations? What is that?
Is that feedback from your supervisor?
yeah, so if you have, on TK20, you will be able to view your, when your supervisor completes like your midterm and then your end of term evaluation.
Is your on-site counseling supervisor
Yes.
at the school?
Mhm. So maybe you might have to print it out and then scan a copy of it in. Maybe from practicum, if you received an evaluation at the end of practicum, maybe include that. So those are kind of a couple of ideas on what you can put there. So that's what this student did. We used to have a paper version of it, but
Oh, we did.
yeah, so what you want to do is probably scan a copy of it before you turn it in, or make a copy of it before you turn it in. Or we can always pull it before it takes longer, so I would do it ahead of time. Make yourself a copy to put in your portfolio. But if you've already turned it in and you're like, I really want to include it, I'll be glad to scan it for you and then email it to you. So.
These forms are electronic now anyway, right?
But yes, they're
So
electronic.
it should be easier.
Yeah, so when you log into TK20, and you click on, I think there's an internship tab, you can view like assessments or evaluations that have been submitted on your behalf, and then print it.
So before Janet leaves, okay, I just want to see, do we all know where we're going to start? Do you know how to take documents that you have saved on your laptop or on Drive or whatever, and start to load those? First, can you access your site, and can you take documents and start to load documents into the file cabinet? That's step A. Or do we need to?
Well, when I get on that website, those two options aren't available. It's only just one.
This one here?
Yeah, I only have one of those. The one on the left, but
Have
the
you
red.
checked, like,
Are you enrolled?
Did you check like today?
Yeah,
No, I haven't been on it.
Because I think
So you
CT,
just changed it?
I think they just got to it
Okay, I was
today.
gonna say I've never seen it look like
Somebody
that.
have open and then one.
It is up.
Digital
Yeah,
portfolio.
I got it. I'm on it.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So,
And you choose the one on the right, right?
yeah, this one. You click open, and then this screen will show up.
So this is my question. If I said next week you have to have X amount, 5 documents loaded into your file cabinet, are you comfortable you can go home and do that?
Yep.
Yeah? Okay, wonderful.
Great.
I have a general question.
General, okay.
So I understand why we're doing this, how we're doing this, and everything.
Mhm.
As far as like applying for jobs and things, how are we making this available? Like, how can someone else access this?
Oh, good.
Good question.
Yeah, so remember presentations? When you go there, like I named one Job Search 2012, and I included, my resume and my personal statement and whichever parts of the portfolio you want to share. So you can send an email to someone, put in their address and a message, and it'll pop into their email. Or you can simply copy this URL into an email message and say, please view my portfolio here. When they click that, it'll take them.
So that link comes from that link equals that presentation.
Yeah,
job
so,
search you want
uh-huh.
to go off of.
So I can click on here, and that's what they'll see.
Is any kind of password required?
Nope, just the link.
So if
So you have to create the link.
So it's in presentations is how
Yeah.
it's accessible to.
So go to presentations, like I said, add one. Gotta give it a name and a shortcut. When you hit save, it'll create a URL which you can copy and paste, or you can send through this system.
So if you Google your name, is it possible you'd stumble upon the link? No?
No, I don't think so, because how I'm even looking at how some of the things are uploaded, like the little graphic pictures, they don't even really pop up. So I think if you Google it, this is not gonna come up. Honestly, I don't think so. I think this site is gonna create a specific link for someone to click on.
Yeah, I mean,
Because not I honestly,
unless this person
you're right.
decides to publish your link to the World Wide Web,
right,
Yeah.
you know, but
Okay.
you're just gonna send it to them through an
Yeah.
email, so it won't come up in a web search. Yeah, and it's a non-editable version, like the version they're seeing won't be, they can't log in and edit anything of it. It's just a view only, like a read only, yeah. But that brings up a good point, like if you're gonna, let's say, share any information about like work you're doing at a school, you have to take out any identifying information, because if you decide to share, let's say, like a case presentation that you know, submitted, you don't want them to be able to tell what school or what student it was that you're working with.
What do you do, just leave it blank or put like a line or something? Because I can think of right now a paper that I saved that I was gonna upload
Yeah.
one of my papers, and I have the name in there. Do you change the
But
name?
even with your papers, you should really only include a first name or create a pseudonym. You really don't want that to be identifiable, even just on a paper that you submit. But if you already did it, that's okay. Just change the name before you upload it, or take off, you know, the last name.
Maybe one first initial, last name, something like that.
I wouldn't do, I might do just first name. Or change the name, because what you don't want is if someone else does access it, and it's about a child's mental illness or something like that, you don't want them to be able to figure out who it is. Well, I know what school you're interning in, and know the child's, you know, first name and last initial, they could probably figure it out.
So yeah, just be, you know, be cognizant of who your audience is before you include any artifacts and things like that.
Good.
All
Other
right.
questions before Janet gets on her way?
Get out of here.
Thank you so
Okay,
much.
thank you all, thank you very much. I'm gonna turn this video off too.